Hey guys, welcome back to another Creative Tap tutorial. Now in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to blur a person's face by tracking the face, drawing a roto shape around there and then using that tracked roto shape to blur the face. Now I'm playing back just this area because it's just taking too long to preview the rest of it, but I'll show you that it works throughout the shot, but it's just taking too long. But we will be tracking the whole shot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this window because we're going to start in a new project which I've got loaded up just behind. Okay, so the footage that we're using today, feel free to download it, the link's in the description, or use what you're using. So first of all, we're going to read in the footage just by hitting R on our keyboard, and then I'm going to use man roto TIFF sequence. I'm going to click open. Okay, so this TIFF sequence is 1920 by 1080. So I'm going to hit S on my keyboard for the project settings just to make sure that we're using the same. So I'll change this to HD 1920 by 1080 and we're good. I'm going to also change my properties bin to show 2 at a time instead of 10. So first of all, we're going to come to the make sure you're on first frame, and I am going to hit P to make a Rotopaint node, and I'm not going to connect it to anything, but I'm just going to click the drop down and I'm going to draw an ellipse just roughly around this guy's face, and then I'm going to click the points just to move it in just a touch like so we're not blurring loads of stuff. Okay, now what you could do, you could keyframe this to move throughout, but that's a bit of a ball ache. Before I move on, I'm going to set the output to alpha so it only outputs an alpha. So if we were to look at it now, you'll see we get RGBA, the sort of white patch, but just change it to alpha so there's no color, but when you hit the A key with your mouse over this, you'll get just the white alpha. Okay, so we're going to connect back to our viewer by hitting 1, and what we're going to do is we're going to start tracking. So if I hit tab and type in tracker, we'll hook this up to the read node, and I'm going to hit 1 to view this tracker. So what I want to do, I'm going to get rid of my Rotopaint for the moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a track. So if I zoom in, I'm going to place this, I think, on here as a nice sort of contrasty point. I'm going to go like that. Now I'm also going to tick rotation. Because I've worked with this shot before, I'm not going to bother with scale because the camera doesn't move in or out and he doesn't come close to the camera. So with that set up, I'm going to hit the analyze forward. So this is basically going to track that point. You can see by there, it's tracking it all the way to the end of the shot. Okay, and it'll take probably about 30 seconds. So what I'll do is I'll pause the video here and I'll join you back in a second. Okay, so you join me back in. This tracking point's tracked throughout. And now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go back to the first frame, and we're going to add another tracking point. And I think this one I'm going to put just up here to get this little receding point. Come in like so, and yeah, that's fine. So what we're going to do is make sure translate and rotation is ticked, and then we're going to track forward again. And hopefully I won't take too long. 15 seconds. I'll probably pause it again just to save you guys time. So I'll join you in a second when it's done. There you go. So we're back again. We've got our 2 trackers that have tracked these 2 points. That's great. So what we need to do now is I'm just going to disconnect this from the footage because we don't need it connected. I'm going to come down to the export. Come back to first frame as well. Make sure as well that the reference frame, wherever you drew that, if you drew that Rotopaint later on frame 50 or whatever, just change reference frame to frame 50. Anyway, should be all at 1. So I'm going to go to export. I'm going to come to the drop down. I'm going to go to transform match move baked. I'm going to click that and then I'm going to click create. And what it's going to do is it's going to give us this transform node. Okay, so we can pull this tracker off to the side. I'm going to reconnect my viewer to the footage. Pull this track off to the side, and I'm going to go into my Rotopaint node. So this is around this guy's face. Okay, so let's get rid of this tracker. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click to open my transform match move. Then with the ellipse selected in the Rotopaint window, I'm going to come to the transform window. So what I want to do is control or command click and drag the animation from translate to translate by here. So again, control, same for rotation, hold control or command and then click this icon and drag to the rotate down here. Now we're not doing scale, so we don't need to do scale. Now if we hit the right arrow keys as we come along in the footage, you can see that these numbers here are matching up with these numbers here. So this Rotopaint node is now following along where these trackers are. So the final thing we want to do before we add in the blur is we just want to go through, so come to the first frame, and we just want to make sure this lines up. So just move these points. Now every sort of 30 odd frames, just make sure everything's lining up. Just give it a little simple click around just to make sure everything is lined up. So it goes off a little bit here, but the thing is we don't have to keyframe this as much as if we were keyframing the whole thing. The track helps a lot with 90% of the work, and this just fills in the blanks really. So we'll just check that it's okay with there. Yeah, awesome. Come forward, go like that, come forward. Yeah, that's fine. Follows him then. Maybe bring it down a bit. Cool. So we've got that. What we want to do next is see this little green line between the transform and the Rotopaint. That's because the properties are linked. The transform here is linked to there. So if you just want to get rid of that line, the way to do it is Alt-E. Alt-E gets rid of expression lines because they're linked via an expression. So final thing we want to do is hit B on our keyboard in the node graph to create a blur node. And then I'm going to connect this little pipe by here, this mask pipe, up to this Rotopaint. So now it's looking for an alpha channel which we've created with this, and it's gonna, so when we increase the blur, it's just gonna blur that area. So I'm gonna take this to about, let's take it to 80, a blur of 80, so it completely blurs in. Now obviously we're gonna have quite a harsh edge if we get rid of our Rotopaint node, so I don't have the line, or if we double click and just hover over the image and hit O on the keyboard, sorry, Q, to get rid of the overlay, you can see that it's quite harsh. Okay, so Q to get rid of that overlay. You can see it's quite a harsh edge. So what we're going to do with the ellipse selected, come into shape, and then just take this feather up like so, so it feathers that out. And you can play around with the fall off if you want, so you get a smoother kind of fall off. But that's basically it. So if I preview back or let's do these 50 frames by here, or just up to there, just so it doesn't take too long. What we're going to see now is this follows him throughout the whole shot. So it's probably worth me just pausing this as I preview it back. Okay, so I previewed a little bit of this back. You can see that this now follows this guy. So that's basically how you do it. Now the last thing I would probably do is just tidy this up. So select these, hit tab and write backdrop. So we can backdrop this, double click it, and we'll type in tracking data, just in case this is passed on to an artist, they know exactly what this is. You can even put for face. So cheers for tuning in. I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller now. Cheers for tuning in, and if this video helped, give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, give us a comment, or you can follow us on our social media, which is the Facebook, the Twitter and the Instagram. All links are in the description. But cheers for tuning in, and I'll see you in a future tutorial.